Everybody's here. The November 25th, 2024 meeting of the Bay City City Commission will come to order. The city clerk will give the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Prince. Rivet.
Yes.
Bernie.
Yes.
Runner.
Here.
Hilliker. Gerard.
Present.
Runberg.
Here.
Clements.
Here.
Morris.
Here.
And Mr. Mayor.
I'm here. I have heard from Commissioner Hilliker. She is stuck in some traffic on her way up from downstate. Is there a motion to excuse? Commissioner Brunner?
Move to excuse Commissioner Hilliker.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Gerard?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any objection? Seeing none, Commissioner Hilliker is excused. Next order of business is presentations. We have 3 this evening, and the first one is swearing in of our new First Ward City Commissioner. All right. Commissioner Prince, let me know if I forgot to clean anything out of that drawer for you. I think it's good. Next order of business is our public safety infrastructure presentation, and Ms. Muscat is going to introduce and get us started.
Director Rowell and Fire Chief Karate are going to take us through a presentation regarding public safety operations and infrastructure. This essential topic directly impacts the well-being of our community and the efficiency of our public safety operations, our infrastructure needs, and the resources required to maintain and enhance it. As we all know, the effectiveness of public safety services, whether it's law enforcement, fire protection, emergency medical services, or disaster response, relies heavily on the infrastructure supporting these operations. From response times to equipment reliability, from communication systems to station facilities, the condition of our infrastructure is a critical factor in ensuring the safety and security of our community. In today's presentation, we will examine the current state of our public safety infrastructure, highlight the challenges we face, identify areas that are unsafe, and touch on areas in urgent need of investment and improvement. With that being said, we also need to ensure that our public safety personnel have the tools, training, and facilities that they need to protect and serve this community effectively. It's all yours.
Thank you for the introduction. This is a result of the
resolution that you guys brought forward a few months back regarding the closure of Station 5. You asked for information on what it would take to fix it, basically, and the staffing required to do so. And this presentation will contain that information. However, you can't really look at Station 5 in a vacuum without looking at the entirety of the Public Safety Department and the operations and the infrastructure that we face citywide, not just in that area of the city. As I look back on my previous presentations and went over them preparing for this one, I think one of the stark things that stood out to me is the fact that we focused a lot on the infrastructure of Station 5 with the roof and the mold and the condition of the building. And although that is, one of the factors that was considered, it's also just a small portion of the reason why we made the move to close that station. The call volume and the staffing are the two top issues, and I think that'll be pretty evident by the time we're done with this presentation. I apologize for those of you that aren't here for this presentation. It's going to take a little while, so be patient. But we're going to discuss the priorities and needs of the department. Before we get started, I think it's a little important to go back and look how we got to where we are at right now with the Public Safety Department, why we transitioned, where our staffing was, and where we are today. This is a look back. This was part of the original presentation when we were discussing a switch to public safety to combine the police and fire departments. And it wasn't because everybody was screaming that we needed to do this. It was great for the city. It was because we were facing over a $2 million shortfall, as you can see in fiscal year 2013. And we had to do something. We couldn't continue to operate the way we were with the personnel we had, and this was the best option for us. If you look at, this is the police department staffing going back to 2001, 2002, and as you can see in 2001, 2002, we had 78 sworn police officers. Today, combined between police and fire, we have 80 personnel. Just to show, that's quite a difference. If you get down to when we initially transitioned, we had 52 law enforcement personnel. Same story with the fire department. Back in 2001, 2002, we had 58 full-time firefighters. When we made the transition, we were down to 43. Today, that number's at 21 that work a shift at a station. And then we have the fire chief and a training officer in addition to that, so 23 altogether that are full-time fire. This was back in, I want to say 2010 is when they actually closed Station 5 permanently the first time, I guess. But if you go back between about 2004 is our best estimate, between that and 2010 they would close it from time to time, just based on staffing. It was closed more than it was open. And if you look at the staffing back then, when they had, this is Fire Chief Mahalik, if you remember back then, when they have 57, 56 people, they're closing it most of the time. And today we have 21 full-time fire in addition to a few PSOs that are working at one time. You get down to 43, and you can see why they were actually discussing the closure of Station 2 at that time too, based on the staffing. This was also part of the presentation because at the time we currently maintained 3 fire stations and all apparatus. The idea was to reopen Smith Street in the Banks station, or Banks area, and assign PSOs to fire stations. When they say assign PSOs to fire stations, that didn't mean actually put a PSO in a fire station ready to respond. It meant assign them to that area to patrol. However, you put a PSO in a district, the idea is to have them stay in that area for routine police work and to be available if a fire were to go out. And when you look at that on paper, it sounds relatively reasonable. It sounds like it could work. It could make sense. However, when put into practice, when you only have, on a given day, 3 public safety officers working the city, and you have 1 on the west side, you can't put somebody just to stay in the slowest area of the city as far as first responder calls for service. They have to go where the calls are, where the emergencies are. So they've, in actuality, spend very little time in that area, even though the plan called for them to be that second person if that firefighter had to go to a call. And again, this is part of the original presentation, but it talks about having 4 to 6 cross-trained personnel per shift to supplement 6 to 8 fire-only trained personnel. And it talks about Fire Station 2 remaining open and being able to reopen Station 5. Assigning them to those areas is great, and they do respond when they're ready, but I like to equate public safety is kind of a better version of a paid-on-call department, in my opinion, because your paid-on-call personnel are the public safety officers. They're there, ready to respond, but they can only respond when available. Instead of responding from home, they're responding from their patrol car and getting there a lot quicker when they are available, but it's not a guaranteed resource. So to say that you can put a PSO in a district and expect them to be available and ready to go, it's just not reasonable. Between the fire chief, the deputy public safety director, and myself, we have 75 years of experience in public safety. We didn't come into these positions and just say, let's see what we can do to cut services to a certain area of the city or to decline services to any area of the city. We came at this looking at what we have and the resources we have and what can we do to best serve the city of Bay City as far as public safety. This is the priorities that we came up with. Right now, our infrastructure has been neglected, to say the least, on both the law enforcement and the fire side of it because we've been trying to preserve personnel for a lot of years. And that's resulted in some of it falling apart to, I guess, I don't know, I want to say beyond repair. It's always repairable, but it always comes at a cost. Money is the object here. You only have so much money to fund personnel and buildings. You got to decide where to put it. That's what this plan is to put forward what the best plan is for this city. I went to a training recently where they talked about persuasiveness and how do you persuade people to go with something. And they made a point to say that emotion was more persuasive than logic. And unfortunately, I think that's what we're falling into. I don't blame people that don't want to see a fire station close in their area. I don't blame them at all. But the facts of the money, the personnel, and the call volume point us in that direction to close that station. I equate having a fire station in Area 5 to, if say we permanently assign a police officer there to stay on that side of the railroad tracks just in case an armed robbery or burglary was occurring. They face the same issues. We don't have a police station in every corner of the city because they have to respond from where they're at. They go to where the calls are. It's no different than the fire service. You still have to have the people to go. A building doesn't put out fire, firefighters do. We can't really expect our department to operate the same way we did with 100 and some people with 80. It's just not a feasible thing to ask. Consolidation of stations provides the best service to the community with the people that we have. We're going to go over all the infrastructure needs tonight. I'm going to start with the Law Enforcement Center, then I'm going to turn it over to the Fire Chief to talk about each of the stations in a little more detail. In 1977, we had a contract with Bay County to basically, we would pay a portion of maintenance and operations for the building of our little corner of it. Ends up being 13 to 15%, depending on where you look at the contract. Current year, we have $115,000 to pay for maintenance and operations at the Law Enforcement Center. One thing that we've been increasingly aware of is that there's no agreement on who pays for any improvements to the building. It's getting older, and there have always been issues with it. We're under the impression that some things that I would consider maintenance issue, they consider infrastructure improvements or things of that nature, like replacing the lighting with LED when the old stuff goes bad or things of that nature. And it just, it's not a clear-cut situation as of now. We've worked with them, they're working with us, but it's difficult to determine who fixes what. That being said, there are some issues that are I would consider unfixable. The way they designed the jail and the Law Enforcement Center put the jail and the inmates right above our offices. And to be honest, my office is really one of the only nice offices in the building, which I don't like. Particularly, I don't like walking into the detective bureau and seeing water pouring into their office and sewage when my office is great. But this is back in 1998, about a little less than a week before I was hired. There was you have it in your packet. It's hard to read up there on the screen for those of you in the audience, but it talks about the coffee cup that was on the detective sergeant's desk and had sewage dripping in it all morning while he drank it. So just one example, and this is 26 years ago. The HVAC coming through the ceiling, the water in the tiles above the ceiling. This is another memo of a detective's office flooding. He actually asked, if you read the memo, if they could install a tarp over his computer and his desk just to keep the water funneling away from him for the next time it leaks. Because you can't really fix the plumbing above you when the jail stuffs sheets down their toilet to break it intentionally, or you name it, they've done it to cause issues. And this is above our head. It got to the point, this was actually back in 1999, they were looking into building a new police department. It was cost of about $10 million back then. This was the study they had done by an architecture firm. However, the economy kind of crashed at that point, and we were just trying to, as I said, preserve people. So this kind of went by the wayside, and we lived with what we have. These are all pictures within the past, I don't think there's anything older than a year up here, some of it within the past couple weeks. If you can see up in the left-hand corner there, that's above one of the lieutenant's offices. Obviously mold from a leaky pipe up there that it took him a while to get fixed. This is a locker room. This is another captain's office. This is actually Central Records, and we used to have right on this wall here is where we had our copy machine and printers. But for whatever reason, whenever it rains and it blows out of a certain direction, it leaks in there. So we had to move that all to the other side of the room. They can't seem to find the source of that. This is the detective bureau. This is at least a few times every 3-4 months. They have buckets down and move stuff to try and fix the plumbing issues above it. This is again where the HVAC is coming through the ceiling. This is one of our property rooms. You can see the water on the floor, and it's coming through the ceiling up there, which is a little harder to repair when it's a solid ceiling and not just a drop ceiling that they can get at and fix. So in your packets, you have a needs assessment for every building that we have, just that goes into a little bit further detail on some of it. I'm just kind of showing you the highlights because I know nobody wants to be here all night. So right now I'm going to turn it over to the fire chief to talk about the infrastructure at all the fire stations.
Good evening. On? Can you hear me? Okay. All right, so looking at the fire station infrastructure needs analysis. So this project started a few years ago. I attended a 10-month program at Eastern Michigan University where they asked, what's your biggest problem in your organization or your municipality? And the biggest problem that we're trying to fix in the fire division is how do we address aging infrastructure? So a couple years ago, we started developing a needs analysis. I presented on a lot of these items about 18 months ago to a majority of the sitting commission. We hosted infrastructure tours in September. It was good to see a few familiar faces in here. We also had a really good representation of our state and federal elected officials. We had officials from Senator McDonald Rivet, Senator Peters' office, so we had a pretty good turnout from those elected officials that serve us to come out and take a look at the conditions that we're currently dealing with. So when we started at Fire Station 1, which is over on Center Avenue. That's our newest fire station, which was built in 1973. We broke down the needs into two sections, as you can see. We have high priority needs that are outlined in red, and then we have medium priority needs. It's important to know that when we look at the needs, that's what they are, as needs. There are no wants included in any of these assessments. So there wasn't a point where we looked at what do the firefighters want. It didn't factor into this. We looked strictly at infrastructure, structural related needs. And as you can see on the left side there, the roof being one of our top priorities. The good thing about the roof is the RFP has been awarded for that roof. We're waiting for Brown & Sons to get the membrane in. Hopefully that roof is replaced prior to the first of this year, of 25. As every time it rains, like it is right now, that roof leaks in the firefighters' sleeping quarters. They have several 5-gallon pails next to their beds with water leaking in anytime it rains. So it's been a rough couple weeks for the firefighters dealing with the constant rain we've had. The boiler, original to the building back in 1973, we're currently running on borrowed time with that boiler. It's about a 6-figure replacement for that, right around 90 to 100,000. The windows, if you remember from the last presentation, about this time of year, the firefighters will put cardboard in those west-facing windows in their bunk room, towels, because the wind just pours through, so it can get pretty cold up there. The windows in the majority of that building are original, so are a little over 50 years old. As we've moved some apparatus around, that requires us to add to our exhaust removal system. That is an NFPA requirement by law to have exhaust particulate filters included in our stations, so we need to do some additions to that. Throughout this needs assessment, we did an asbestos study in all 4 fire stations. So Station 1 was by far our worst, primarily because it's the biggest building. So all 3 floors contain asbestos floor tile, definitely at a higher level than the other 3 stations. Fire station security, so that's the only fire station that's staffed with an administrative assistant. It's not uncommon for her to be alone in that building while we're out on incidents or calls. When that happens, she doesn't have any ability to screen individuals prior to getting them in. So we are looking at, we've worked with IT here, relatively low-cost options to provide a video camera, something along the lines of a blank camera, to at least be able to screen people prior to letting them in the building when she's there alone. Cascade system is 10 years beyond replacement. That is the system that fills our air bottles. So when we work a fire, we come back to the station to fill the bottles that we wear on our back. The Cascade system is what we utilize to refill those. And then what I would consider a major item of concern is the paging system. And what a paging system is, that's the system that operates when dispatch sends a call to us. It sets tones off, the lights go off in the station. That's how we receive the voice portion of an emergency dispatch. That station is original to the building, or that system is original to the building as well, so it's 50 years old. The issues we've had is it's so far beyond repair at this point, we can't get parts to fix that. The contractors that we used to use have essentially thrown their hands up. There are no fixes for that system currently. So we struggle with fire officers, apparatus not being notified that there's a call. We'll get a phone call and say, hey, did you get the tones? No, we didn't. Well, we have a call at so-and-so. All right, tones never dropped. That's not something uncommon, especially at Fire Station 2. More common there than the rest of our stations. Moving over to those medium priority needs. Concrete approach repair. Again, most of this stuff is original to the station. The concrete approach is just starting to disintegrate, especially in the city-owned sidewalk area that runs in front of the station. Some pretty good holes there. Some of the office HVAC units, we started to replace those with personnel in-house. Asphalt repairs, so both parking lots, the parking lot to the rear of the fire station along the alley, and then the west side of Lincoln Street, just disintegrating over time. Station air compressor, which is what keeps air in our fire trucks. So all of our air brakes that need to stay at that minimum of 60 pounds, that station air compressor is in need of replacement. The carpet, I know some of you that went through the tours kind of chuckled, but the carpet in the bunk room is original from 1973. And especially with the issues we've had with the roof, definitely in need of replacement. And the last couple items, some entry doors and railings are just over time starting to rust and fall apart. And we currently don't have any ADA compliant restrooms, so it's not uncommon for us to have individuals stop in that want to use the restroom, but we don't have anything that's ADA compliant currently. So the total costs to address those issues at Fire Station 1 are right around $527,000. Moving into Fire Station 2, which I know you're aware of, that is our fire station. It's our oldest one, 1956. That's the one where we're dealing with PFAS contamination. We've been dealing with that since 2020. It's Been quite a project. Significant work has already been completed there in terms of site excavation, site mitigation, required testing and sampling through Eagle. We've tested enough to know that they're not going to let us rebuild there. So there's so much PFAS contamination that that site, at some point, we're just waiting for the news, but at some point, we will have to demo that and look for another site in the south end. So there's also significant structural damage, especially on the south wall. Walls are shifting. It's in pretty rough shape, but it's been a good station for a long time. It's just pretty old. Fire Station 4, I know it kind of seems like it's all doom and gloom. Fire Station 4, I would say, is a bright spot for us. Although it was built in 1964, it's in pretty good shape. Overall, I think it needs some minor repairs. The high priority needs at Fire Station 4 are windows. We have those in the budget. We'll currently address that in this fiscal year. Again, similar to Station 1, some exhaust removal system additions, just to stay compliant with NFPA. Small portion of asbestos abatement that needs to take place just in one room at Fire Station 4. Paging system is a concern, like we noted in Fire Station 1 and Fire Station 2. And then bathroom flooring, there was cast iron plumbing in the bathroom floor. That cast iron is starting to rot. It's a concrete floor, and we have the floor is starting to sink a little bit, so we are going to have to get someone in to address those issues. Medium priority needs, similar to Fire Station 1, that concrete is original, carpet in the bunk rooms are original, and then the tool shed that we house our lawn maintenance equipment in is in pretty rough shape. The projected costs at Fire Station 4 are around $108,000. So Fire Station 5, as we know, Fire Station 5 was the station that had the mold and mildew. Some of this was caused from the roof. After the resolution was made, I started going back through the records from chiefs that were here before me. I can find complaints of mold and mildew to my OSHA back 10 years ago. So we know that this has been kind of an ongoing issue. The problem with that is the physical design of that building causes the mold and mildew. We know some comes from the roof, but we also know that the firefighters built an addition on this 30 years ago. When they built that addition, we have no idea how that work was conducted. We do know that water is coming up from the floor. So how we mitigate that, we're unsure of. To put a roof on it and say that's going to take care of the mold and mildew, I don't believe that's the case. I wouldn't stand here and say that. The paging system at Station 5, same as the other three, antiquated, unable to fix. Plumbing was a major issue at Station 5. Most of those fixtures were original, so trying to get parts for toilets and sink was almost impossible. The medium priority, concrete, carpet, tool shed again, that houses some of the lawn stuff. So when we look at Fire Station 5 and following along with what Director Rowell said, we have so much money to work with in the budget. In terms of building maintenance, we're allotted so much per year. There are so many issues. Trying to figure out where to allot that money is I feel like we're robbing Peter to pay Paul every year. When we look at a call, we're going to get into the call volume, but we look at 12% of the total calls in this city are in that district, 10% of the EMS and 2% of the fire. Versus that station on the south end, Station 2 with the PFAS contamination, which is running a third of our calls in the city. So in your package, you'll see this is some correspondence that we had with our workers' comp carrier, reference the concerns that they had for mold and mildew at Station 5, basically stating that we're liable for that and that we would need to be able to address these issues prior to putting anyone back in there on a long-term basis. So as we did this assessment, we looked at our apparatus too. And as you can see in front of you is an apparatus grading schedule that we use to give a letter grade to our equipment. The big picture, I think we're in pretty good shape. I'll take something that newly elected Commissioner Prince said last week. We can't continue to run fire apparatus and fire engines on medical calls. The fire service has operated the same way for an eternity, and frankly, it doesn't work. We have to run quick response vehicles, utility type vehicles, to these medicals. We started that on the west side with the implementation of Rescue 4. It's worked great. Response times are actually down 4 seconds from 5:22 to 5:18. Rescue 1, we have another pickup that I hope will be in service by the end of this week, running out of Station 1, provided we're staffed at a level where it can be in service. So it will not be in service every day because of staffing, but when we are staffed at a level, we will run that. It has definitely shown to significantly reduce costs. We can buy 10 utility vehicles for the price of 1 engine. So as we look at our engines overall, as you can see, the engine that the Rosenbauer 2008, that's an F, that was engine 5. So if Station 5 remains closed, that will fall off the books. The replacement cost for that today is $874,000. Underneath that is the E1 ladder that was just ordered. That truck will be an F within a year. It'll be 2 years before that truck comes in. It's the most versatile piece of equipment we have. The forward thinking by Mr. Zimmerman from Fleet, being able to get this order prior to, we're looking at 15% inflation per year on fire trucks. So what was 1.4 today is 1.62 next year. Insanity what's going on with inflation in fire trucks. But know that we are trying to be fiscally responsible running these quick response vehicles on these medicals. There's no doubt that when we start looking at a 5-year trend, this is going to save some money. So looking at the 2024 projected call volume, it just basically breaks it down per district. You can see Station 1 is by far the busiest district, followed by Station 2, then Station 4. And those numbers for Station 5 were the calls that were dispatched in Station 5's area to today. So when you look, if we compare, or when we add Station 4 and Station 5 together, they still don't make up Station 2. So 2/3 of our emergency calls in this city take place on the east side of the river. So with our significantly highest call volume being out of Fire Station 1. Like I said earlier, 12% of the total calls are Station 5. So when we look at which station, we don't want to close any. But unfortunately, this is a business. We have to run it like a business. Station 5, based on the data, that decision, the data made that decision for us, unfortunately. This time, I'm going to turn it back over to Director Rowell.
Now that we've depressed everybody here, I guess. The good news is that to fix public safety or to move forward or to fill a lot of the holes, it won't cost $600 million like the streets will. So that's good news, right? I guess the thing that would fix a lot of our issues would be to have one public safety building on the east side of the river where we would combine police and fire at a centralized location. It would address all the infrastructure needs for law enforcement and the East Side Fire Divisions. You can read what I have up there, but this is, moving forward, we need to figure out how to consolidate our resources and be able to get the most out of our engines and our people. By combining into one station on the east side, you enable at least one, hopefully 2 rescue vehicles to operate for the east side of the river to get to these calls quickly and less expensively. And you also have a lot less apparatus that you need to support in your budget. And if, as you saw, the way they're going up, it's not getting any cheaper. This is, it's an educated estimate, but when you look at the cost for these things, I put $30 million on here as a maximum. That would be to build a building and to add staffing. Again, this is just throwing a number out there for what I think would really put us in a good spot. I'm not tied to any particular number or any particular solution here, but I'm giving you some options. A 20-year bond at 4.5% would be about $2.3 million a year. This is about $150 for a home with a taxable value of $50,000. We initially looked at a possible location if we did do a public safety building at the old DPW there on Water Street. It's not an ideal location because it's a little further south than we would like to be able to get to the entire east side of the river. However, the fact that it was on the river was appealing due to the Coast Guard station not being staffed, and us having to respond to those a lot more than we would like to. And as you see, the cost for this was an estimated about $23.2 million. However, there's a few $1,000,000 into this that talks about mitigation of all the contamination that's there at that site currently, and it would require a lot of extensive mitigation to have a fire station there because firefighters are there 24 hours a day, which requires more restrictions, I guess. So we have kind of determined this isn't a logical location, but it does give us an idea of how much a building would cost. So a guesstimate would be about $20 million for a combined police and fire public safety building on the east side. Another option would be just to live with the law enforcement center the way we are, and we survived in there for 20 plus years. It just leaks on us, and it's going to need some improvements eventually. We just have to work it out with the county if that's the direction we go. But we will need something other than Station 1 on the east side. Station 1, you can't respond to the south end in a reasonable amount of time. And we can't replace Station 2 where it sits now based on the contamination. This would address the apparatus replacement, I think, if we were to build a new fire station number 2. But the thing would be we would have to add 3 firefighters to staff that so that we can actually utilize a rescue vehicle and not leave that station empty should a fire occur. This gives you kind of a guesstimate over the long-term costs of what that would be for adding those firefighters to the budget. Approximately $7 million for just a fire station, additional personnel, as I said before. Over 20 years, it's about $10.5 million. To fully fund this with millage would be about 2 mills. Just to go back to talk about the personnel priorities. Part of the ask was to see what it would cost to add enough people to be able to staff Station 5 with 2 firefighters. And I just want to show you the comparison of what we really need, where we need people if we were to add them. Station 5, unfortunately, would be a little bit down the list based on the call volume we have. If you look at the calls for service for law enforcement, they're not going down. This is almost 25,000 calls last year alone. When you figure there's 3 or 4 officers working patrol at a time, that's not a lot of free time and not a lot of availability to respond to calls for fire services as well. This is a chart I brought up before, and it kind of shows, again, just to remind you that the calls in which Station 5 was the nearest is less than 1 call in a 24-hour period. West Side response time since closing Station 5, this includes the time from somebody calling 911 to the time the firefighter shows up at their door. And the entire west side, and it actually is a faster response time than we had for Station 5's area with just Station 5 responding to that with a fire truck. As you can see, it's about 4 seconds faster. Personnel priorities. As I showed the call volume, if we were to build a new public safety facility on the east side, the personnel priorities would first, my priority would be to add some public safety officers. You saw the call volume for that, and public safety officers also increase the fire response as well because you have more people that can do both. After that, I would add 3 additional firefighters to staff the east side fire station so that we can run 2 rescues out of that and save on fire apparatus. Only after that would I start considering adding more firefighters to staff Station 5 with 2 people. Total cost for this, all that staffing, is about $1.6 million in the first year. If we were to only replace Station 2, it's the same total amount in people that we would add before we got to Station 5. However, I would start with 3 firefighters at Station 2 if we were to replace that station, just because I don't like having the firefighter there on an island by themselves. This would allow us to run a rescue out of that station. Again, same cost as at the bottom line. We have legislative update meetings. I think they're almost tired of hearing me talk about it, but every time we meet with representatives, whether it's at the state or federal level, I bring up the need for infrastructure improvements here in the city. I bring up PFAS remediation because a lot of places are dealing with it. We just happen to be one of the first that was discovered to have such heavy PFAS contamination at one of our fire stations. We've talked directly with Senator Gary Peters' office on multiple occasions. We've talked with Senator Kristen McDonald-Rivet on multiple occasions. I think there is hope that they will hopefully eventually help us with the PFAS. They've led us to believe, I guess, that that's a possibility in the future. However, the infrastructure is not, I haven't gotten too many positive comments from them yet. I know last year, just for example, the state funded 3 different new fire departments for a couple cities in the state of Michigan. However, that was kind of an unusual budget year where there was a lot of money to go around, and I've been told not to count on that ever happening again. But we have met with them, we have talked to them. AFG grants, which I know some of you have mentioned, we have applied for, we have gotten in the past. When they do an AFG grant, they always put out what the priorities are. And the number 1 priority for AFG grant is safety and operations. And infrastructure is almost never included. I haven't ever seen it included in their priorities, and I've never seen them award something that wasn't in their top 3 priorities. Right now, we actually are applying for an AFG grant to replace all of our SCBA's, and we're doing it in a combined application with Midland because when you do a regional application, you're more likely to get approved. It doesn't make sense to me for us to apply for something that we're likely not to get and not apply for something that we are likely to get when we need both. The SCBA's that we currently have were paid for by AFG grant. There's also, I've heard people mention the SAFER grant, which is to add actual firefighters to your roster. There are a lot of strings attached to those grants, and I don't like personally hiring people with a Band-Aid and hoping to be able to keep them, because it only gives you funding for up to 3 years, and then after that, you have to come up with the funding on your own if you were awarded however many dollars or firefighters equivalent. With that being said, I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Do any members of the commission have any questions? Commissioner Rivet.
Last year, we gave your department a $1.4 million annual increase in salaries that will be effective in 2 years, $1.4 million a year. I said at the time, how does this impact the rest of the city? How does it impact the rest of your department? No trouble, we got plenty of money. I'm confused. Have we talked to Bangor Township about, they're building a new fire station. Have we talked about working in conjunction with them? We know fire calls are down, right? Have we had a conversation with them? And we had a conversation with the county about a law enforcement center. I can't believe Sheriff Cunningham's happy with water on his desks either. So I guess I ran a fire department for 4 years, and I understand you can always use more stuff. But what I'm watching is from the manager, no vision, no strategic approach to running public safety in this city. So why haven't we talked to Bangor? They're trying to build a new fire station right on Euclid Avenue, right? Why are we talking to the sheriff's department and the county executive? I mean, what you want to do, and the other piece that's relatively critical, and I'm as sad as anybody to see 48 to 23 firefighters in the city of Bay City, But we were sold at that time that the police would be there to support them, right? That's what was sold to us. And that has saved a significant amount of money. So I am skeptical that there has been strategic and long-term visioning for any department in this city, and we're seeing the consequence of it now. And so, you know, I think we got to be a lot more thought out. We got to have a far broader view and a strategic approach to running this city. And when you commit to $1.4 million a year for a salary increase, and maybe it was warranted. I mean, but you have to recognize that that's going to take that much money out of being able to update infrastructure, to have a strategic plan, to address other issues within the city. And the fact that we go from item to item with no planning ultimately is our problem. And so here's my first question. Do you ever talk to Bangor about joint operations and joint facilities?
Absolutely. Let Fire Chief Karate address that first question.
So yes, absolutely, we do. So as you know, we've recently just started with working with Bangor on automatic aid. So on the west side, we work with them on automatic. We're both dispatched at the same time for their structure fires and ours. They also come to the east side on a second alarm for us. Great relationship. Those are conversations that Chief Galoner and I have had, reference the new station that's going to be built on Euclid. We're following a model right now that took place in Jackson. The city of Jackson and Summit Township just did a merger. Those communities are very similar to Bay City and Bangor Township. So nothing official, but to answer your question, absolutely, we have had those conversations started.
You know, I proposed that in 1996.
Well, if you'd have made that happen, we wouldn't be talking about it.
Well, it's because the city commission refused to take it up, right? What about joint police services with the county?
We've, ever since, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago, conversations have began trying to come up with an agreement basically between, involving the attorneys. The old agreement we have has certain budget line items that we pay 13-point-something% out of. And it doesn't matter where that's at. It just hasn't gone anywhere to this point. And to answer your question, Sheriff Cunningham's office is very nice too. He doesn't get water leaking in it.
I'm sure his side of the building has issues. And that should be addressed. My point is, long-term strategic planning about all decisions, including commitments on contracts, because I'm not sure how the firefighters are going to get a raise, because it looks like we're broke, right? Long-term strategy about facilities, apparatus, long-term working together with other communities. Hampton's struggling, we know that. I mean, their tax base is falling apart. We have Monitor Township that just built a new fire station. There are significant opportunities. Remember, the city of Bay City's population was over 50,000 when you were looking at that 100 number. And now we're down to about 30,000.
It was never 50,000 since I've been here.
Okay, 42,000, or it was 55,000 in the mid-1970s. So we understand that our population is shifting, our tax base is shifting, and we have to shift to it, and we have to be progressive, strategic, and positive. And in the 2 years I've sat here, that's the one thing I have not seen from any department.
Not sure there's a question in there. Do you have a question or no?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Jarrett?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I guess I would agree that I'd like to see us move forward with having conversation with Bangor Township, also sit down with the county. And it sounds like you had those, and so I don't know what the rest of the body feels, but I do think it's vital before we look at plans to go out for a millage for a large facility that we need to have those conversations, sit down, see what it takes to put something together. I know we have a strong working relationship with Bangor Township, that automatic aid agreement. I have had some phone calls into them just to kind of talk about that, get some perspective. So, where can that go? Is there a potential for interagency fire protection district or some kind of regional fire authority? So something like that, I think maybe the body would be willing to support. So hopefully we have those conversations, obviously with the county also, because they're vitally important to this. So I would support those initiatives to look at those first before we look out for a millage. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others? Commissioner Morris?
So I see this presentation was meant to be specifically for a needs assessment. The final was required to keep Station 5 open. I do appreciate that you brought up all of the needs that are required. I understand, but this was meant to be just for Station 5. And it seems like I got everything but what it needs to take to keep Station 5 open outside of the cost for the building, which is fine. And it looks like to keep it staffed for Station 5, potentially, is you're basically saying, well, to staff Station 5, we need to build another building to have anyone else at Station 5, which this was mainly for Station 5 in the first place, but I'm not seeing much of action or any ideas to keep it open. I'm seeing ideas for everything else. And you guys basically stating that Station 5 can't be reopened or you don't want to reopen, which that's not what this was for. This was to find ideas to figure out how we can keep it open. So I just don't understand what, it seems like we negated everything that we were supposed to cover in this presentation for Station 5. Unless, if all it takes is the $386,000 projected to keep it open, is that what's required to keep it open?
That's to mitigate what's currently happening there. As the fire chief alluded to, that doesn't fix the water coming up through the floor. That's, we can't fix how it was built. From what I understand, it was actually a porch area with just a slab of cement that they finished off and basically built a structure on top of. There's no drainage, there's no anything underneath it. This is, I'm giving you the priorities of where personnel need to be to run this public safety department efficiently.
I appreciate that, but this was meant to be to figure out ideas and come up with some strategies to keep Station 5 open. That's all. I do appreciate everything else, though, because this is required. Like, I believe this is needed information for everyone, but this was meant to be primarily for Station 5 is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others? Commissioner Gerard?
Sorry, just to follow up. How are we, so with Station 5 closure, so how are we protecting the residents in that area right now and servicing those folks with the closure there? I know a lot of the concern is, if you will, with the bridges closed and then we have trains blocking the intersections. Some big concerns about that. How are we addressing that? What are we doing to make sure that we have that area covered? I mean, that's really a big part of the question people have in that area, the banks specifically.
It's still, we rely heavily on mutual aid with Bangor, just like they rely heavily on mutual aid from us. If we're blocked, Bangor will respond whenever we need them to. We have a great working relationship with them.
So they can access that. How are they accessing that point? I guess maybe just a fun.
They're on the other side of the tracks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others? Commissioner Prince?
What are our current staffing levels at each of the fire stations?
Well, we have 21, there's 7 on each shift, so at the most, there's 7 working at a time. The minimum is 5. So 2 at Station 1 at a minimum all the time. There could be as few as 1 at Station 2, and then 2 at Station 4.
Are you all set, Commissioner Prince? Okay. Commissioner Rivet?
Just to follow up, people confuse my extraordinary respect for the firefighters and the police department and the members of the police department. I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for them. I think they do a good job on behalf of the city. What what is incomprehensible to me is the lack of strategic management at the manager level, understanding how all the pieces on the chessboards have to work in order to preserve the ability to support our police and fire in the long term. This is the real trouble, right? The real trouble is these folks are doing their job, and because we don't have a strategic plan for how we operate this city, they're the ones who get laid off in the long run.
What's up? Anyone else? I have a couple questions. So you talked about a public safety facility being built at the old DPW site. I didn't hear any mention of any fire coverage on the west side as well. I can't imagine that taking away both fire stations on the west side would be popular. Is there a plan to have fire coverage there?
Station 4 would remain open. That's
Got it. Station 4 remains open plus a new station.
Yes.
So 2 stations total instead of
correct.
3/4, depending. Okay, the other question I have is, right now our firefighters go to medical calls, and I know that some communities do that and some communities don't do that, and it's an all or nothing, you don't get to choose. One thing that I've heard from other communities is, and from paramedics in other communities, is the way that the law works is if a firefighter goes to a medical call, the firefighter is in charge of that site. And if a paramedic then shows up from an ambulance service, the paramedic then is taking orders from the firefighter, who may be less qualified because their primary function is a firefighter, not a paramedic who's specifically doing this. Now, I know that a majority of our calls are medical calls, so I don't want to say that our firefighters are not qualified or anything like that, but I'm just trying to get a grasp on that aspect of medicals and fire calls for medical reasons.
So if we get there first, we're going to start whatever life-saving operations we need to do. If it's an ALS call, as we're trained at the BLS level, we're BLS done transporting here in Bay City. If it's an ALS call and MedStar shows up, their paramedic is going to take control of that scene. In terms of who's in charge, I don't think we've ever had an issue with that, but it goes to the level of licensure. So if it's an ALS call with a cardiac arrest, those paramedics are going to push that medicine and control that treatment. But in terms of, yes, it is an all or nothing. And frequently we're there first. So our residents get a good level of service in under 5 minutes most of the time from all of our individuals, from the great firefighters that we have here.
Okay. Yeah, it was a paramedic from the Detroit area, so there may be obviously different because it's a much larger community and whatnot. But that's good to know that there's not any kind of abrasiveness there. So that's awesome. I like the idea of having some sort of millage to pay for this. We look at Bangor, we look at Monitor. I believe both of them passed millages to do those fire stations or those new fire centers. So I like that idea because that's where things are going. I know there's some difference of opinion on the finances of the raise from last year, but I understand. I get it. I hope that we can move forward and find something, because I don't think that small amount of money that was in the increase per year is going to be enough to offset what this cost is going to be. Anyone else before we move on? Nobody? Okay. Thank you very much. Next order of business is healthcare costs. Ms. Muscat is also going to introduce this one and bring up
Tonight, we have a presentation to discuss the opting out of PA 152. I am speaking for every single employee of our organization, as they are concerned about money, and they are now being faced with the rising cost of health care. You will see in the presentation that our health care premiums have surged upward for the upcoming year, and unfortunately, our employees in the city are feeling the burden. Even with employee raises that are coming in January, they will still take a pay cut with the pending healthcare prices. Our ability to retain and attract top talent is directly impacted by the high cost of healthcare. Employees are looking for stability and security, and when the cost of essential healthcare benefits become unaffordable, it risks driving valuable team members away to other places of employment or discouraging potential recruits. This is a challenge that we cannot ignore if we have hope to remain competitive in our industries. In response to this, we have put forward a proposal aimed at easing this burden. We are committed to ensuring that our employees have access to the care they need, stay healthy, and continue to perform at their best. We believe that this proposal will not only help support our workforce, but also enable us to retain our talented staff and attract the best candidates for the future. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brad Tucker, our HR Director, and George Martini, our Fiscal Services Director.
Good evening. So we prepared a presentation today. We're going to go through some of the options that we have, and we're going to start off with the current state of our city healthcare plan. So currently,
Brad.
Sorry.
I think you just have to get it in front of you more.
Am I good here? Good here? Yeah. Okay. So the currently for our two plans that we offer a $1,600 deductible and a $2,000 deductible. Starting at the first option, we go from $52.24 all the way down to $142.37 for a family, depending on the options. You'll see here's our annual costs for those plans. So for a single, you're looking at around $11,000, and then all the way down to a family, which you're looking at roughly $30,000 for those plans annually. In September, we received a proposal from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and these were the numbers of our renewals. So the option one, which went up federally by $50 for the deductible, has now risen to $133.81, which represents a 156% increase for those individuals, all the way down to a family, which has gone up to $364.83, also representing a 156% increase. On our option two, a little bit worse, has risen up for a single to $82.68, all the way down to a family to $225.38. And these are biweekly costs, looking at a roughly 461% increase to that employee's per paycheck. So what we did is we analyzed kind of the data and where we're at from an illustrative perspective. These are coming off of our COVID rates. Okay, so you'll see in 2022, we dipped by, and this is just for option one, 4.68%. And kind of what happened when COVID started is people stopped going to the doctor, stopped getting elective surgeries, stopped getting all of their services that they would normally get. And when you get rates, for example, in 2022, they are reflective of your previous claims. Okay, so those would have been the claims that you're kind of tailoring those towards. As people started to, the country started to open back up, 2022, you'll see a 6.2% increase, 24 another 1% increase, and now to 25, roughly around a 23% increase. That's just for option one. The same sort of statistics happen for option two. You're looking at a 22% increase for both, for all three plans under option two. So what do we operate under? We operate under Public Act 152. This was put in place in 2011 by Governor Snyder. And essentially what it does is it limits the amount a public employer can contribute to a public employee or elected official's health insurance plan. There are 3 scenarios underneath that plan. One is the hard cap, which is what we currently operate under. There's an option to move to 80-20, which as it reads, 80% would be covered by the employer, 20% would be covered by the employee. The third option is an opt-out. So the city staff can present a resolution to opt out of PA 152 and come to you with a plan on how we think that should look. Here's the historic numbers for the hard cap. So the treasurer each year, since its inception, so the Public Act went into effect in 2011. 2012 was the first year that they used their calculation. Each year, the treasurer comes out with an increase to that hard cap based off of percentage. Roughly around 2.6% each year is what the average is. As you can see in 2025, the treasurer came back with a 0.2% increase to the hard cap. So given the rise in healthcare costs with the 0.2% addition to the hard cap, the entire increase of our renewal will be shouldered by the employees as it stands right now. I've kind of put those in graphs here, looking at where the hard cap was at. You'll see that in the red lines. And in the blue lines represents the previous graph you guys had that shows the increase in cost to the healthcare plans. This is option 1, and this is option 2. So in comparison, I wanted to show a slide where you can see the numbers side by side. So in the first column there, that is what our employees are paying per pay for each of those plans, starting with the single in option 1 at $52.24, which is compared to what the renewal rate came back at, which is $133.81, representing a 156% increase from 2024 to 2025. Same thing with the option 2, going from $14.76 to $82.68 for a single, representing a 460% increase to the biweekly pay for city employees. Working in conjunction with Tony Reyes, we put together statistics on what that would represent for the employees of the city of Bay City. This chart shows you how many individuals would effectively get 0 to negative consequences towards their pay working for the city of Bay City should this go through. 79.5%, or 174 employees, would effectively take a pay decrease to stay here underneath those healthcare rates. So basically every person that's in that red is represented. Down below it is the percentage decrease that they would take. And this would be after raises after January 1. So we took that into account as well, because there's some unions that do give are scheduled to have collective bargaining agreement raises in January. These numbers were taken after that. So what we kind of tried to analyze here is kind of what happened. Why were these increases so drastic? And we've kind of pinpointed them down to a couple of different things. One is the general cost of health insurance. What it does from our standpoint is they do a look-back period. So they give you your rates based off of claims that you've done in the previous year. And so the City of Bay City has had an extensive amount of claims, just individuals kind of going back, and that's kind of universal around the state, is that, you know, people are getting back into the doctor, they're taking care of things that they didn't normally take care of. Elective surgeries are a big one. We had as we went over previously, there was a small, I would say unprecedented, increase to the hard cap rate from the treasurer, and then the rising cost of prescription drugs. I'll go into some of those statistics here. Our prescription drugs, kind of year over year, from 2022 all the way to 2025, you'll see in the blue is our projected, and in the red is the claims that we actually paid. So from 2022, we went from $1.1 million projected all the way up to 2.3 in 2025. There are plenty of reasons for that. One of which we've actually, a couple of them we've already addressed. This chart here represents your claims. So the blue is your projected total claims, and the red is your net claims from past experience. Okay, so they estimate the number in blue, which for 2025 is about 6.6 million. They used claims back from February of 23 to adjust those claims, and that's represented by the $5.8 million chart you see there. As you can see from 2020, we were at roughly 5 million. We're up about $1.6 million in what we're going to be charged and what we're going to have to pay in claims. So in going through this, we've done a couple of things already from the start. The first thing that we've done was we've introduced a GLP-1 exclusion for lifestyle medications. I'm sure everybody's here has seen the Ozempic commercials. The reality is those are about $1,600 a month. So we've elected to exclude those lifestyle medications. Now, it's important to understand that GLP-1s have dual purpose. The first purpose is for diabetes, which is not part of the exclusion. The second piece is for lifestyle, a lifestyle piece, which is the weight loss form. We've only excluded for the weight loss form. The second thing we did was we dropped prescription drug tiers. So we moved from tier 1 in Blue Cross down to tier 2. And what that does is that mandates that if there's a generic drug out there, we're asking that those individuals take that generic drug. Conversely, some people are allergic to the generic drug. There is step therapy that does take that into account and has the ability for those individuals to take it. The third option that we looked at was a deductible. So we introduced 2 new deductibles. One is $2,500 as a deductible. That would be option 3. And option 4 would be a $3,300 deductible. Again, trying to lower the cost for those individuals who might not use the insurance that much. Another option that I failed to put on this slide that I would like to go over is we've been fortunate enough to be involved in a program called ElectRx. And so what ElectRx does is they work through mainly overseas pharmacies. In our particular case, they typically go out of Windsor. And so what they do is they try to focus on high-cost drugs. So I will use the GLP-1s as an example. If we were to have, if it's using good numbers, if the drug costs you $1,000 a month, ElectRx might be able to get it from Canada for roughly $600, and the city would save $400 over the that's just for a 1 month supply of that individual drug. ElectRx aims to try to mitigate those costs. For example, with our pharmacy drugs and what we had last year, had we used ElectRx, and mind you, ElectRx is a voluntary program, and so what we try to do is we try to get incentives to employees to use those. We can't force people to use ElectRx, but if we would have used ElectRx this last year, the city would have saved roughly $600,000. Same medication, everyone would have the same coverage. So that is an option that we're going to be introducing as well to try to mitigate those costs of those prescription drugs. The other options that we looked at, so the first one is we tried to shop the plan. We got a quote from ASR, which is HAP, and we looked into that, seeing how those coverages affect. We also looked into the 80-20 option, which I'll go over. It's later in the slide. We looked at how we could calculate internal illustrative rates and projections. Sometimes when you get a year that's kind of off, your illustrative rates come back really high, and you can kind of bet on yourself to lower that illustrative rate. We did look at other lower coverages of Blue Cross Blue Shield plans. The things that we had to take into account in that aspect is that what was going to be the disruption to that. And by disruption is how many members will be affected by us making a change to the plan. It is worth noting that the Affordable Care Act doesn't allow you to peel certain coverages away, so they're federally mandated, and so you kind of have to play with certain things to try to see what options are out there. We even looked at trying to go down to the third tier of the prescription drug formulary, which would have had a lot of disruption. There would have been a lot of affected employees that wouldn't receive the coverage that they need. Here's the option that we looked at for the 80-20 option. So if you remember us talking about those three options, here was the 80-20 option that we looked at. As you can see, still a substantial increase, going from 52.24 to 86.13, representing a 64.8% increase. And that option two, while it did come down some, represents roughly around a 414% increase to those biweekly premiums. So what we did was put together a proposal for an opt-out, and that's what we'll be going over here. Good? Okay. So the total cost for option one, and this is just an example. So what we ended up doing was we took the increase from a totality standpoint, and we split it in half and said, employees are going to shoulder half, the city shoulders half. So the total cost for the family coverage in option one, and this is just an example of how we calculated it. Total cost for family coverage in option 1 is about $29,900. The PA 152 hard cap amount for family coverage is $21,000. The amount over the hard cap is about $8,800, and then we divided that by 2. So you'll see the proposed employer cost here of $25,486, and the proposed employee cost of $4,400, totaling the $29,923. That's just an example of how we calculated the split. This is a graph here that shows it shows options 1, it shows options 2, and options 3 and 4 as well that we've added into the plan. So in the far left column, you see the annual employer cost, the annual employee cost, the total annual cost, and then what we've proposed as a biweekly contribution for each employee. So we wanted to offer option 3 and option 4 at $2,500 for option 3 as a deductible, and option 4 at $3,300 as another incentive for individuals. And both of these plans, if individuals elect to take them, both save the city money and it also saves the employee money on their biweekly contributions. Now, if they go to the doctor, obviously it's going to be a little bit steeper of a price to reach that deductible. But we wanted to give those options out there for those individuals who, definitely needed to have some relief there. We saw 400% increases, so we tried to make some headway in that. Others who have opted out. So there's in our research, there is a plethora of different options that communities have used to opt out of PA 152. They've went with strict percentages. They have went with union contracts, which I don't think is the appropriate option, reading the act. And so there's a plethora of different places. Just off the top, Saginaw County has done it. Holland has done it. Howell has done it. Richmond's done it. So, but the resolutions are all over the board as to what they do once they opt out of PA 152. There's a multitude of different options. And what we chose was to split the costs with the employee. So our proposal, in the first column, you'll see this is what we pay in 2024. Working from option 1 all the way down to option 2. The second column is the proposed per pay. So for a single, going from $52.24 to $62.60, roughly about a $10 increase for those individuals, representing a 19% increase to that. All the way down to option 2, a family goes from $40.16 to $101.96, representing 153.8% increase to that biweekly premium. I think it is important to note that in taking this into consideration, these are big increases to those individuals. These individuals are the working class of Bay City. And so I feel like we've put together a comprehensive plan that helps ease the burden of their health care costs.
We did look at what the budgetary impact of this proposal is going to be, And of course, this is only going to be for the remaining half of the 2024-2025 fiscal year. But under the hard cap compliant, under the old methodology, we had total cost of about $3.9 million. And now with the 50-50 hard cap split, that's going to go up to about $4.6 million. Now this is the calendar year totals, not the remaining fiscal year. So the additional cost for all of calendar year 2025 will be about $653,000. But in terms of what it's actually going to do to the 24-25 budget, what we had budgeted was almost 4.3 million. Keep in mind that, you know, when we passed the budget, we knew what the rates were for 2024, but we didn't know what the rates were going to be for 2025. So the rates always, so what we put into the budget was always 6 months of what we knew, and then 6 months of something that was happening in the future, and we typically included a 5% increase. Now, obviously, with some of the increase that we saw, that was significantly further than that 5%. But so the total medical insurance budget that is in the budget right now for all of the year is $4,060,000, and with this new increase, we will see about $4.3 million that we will spend. So for fiscal year 24-25, for the entire city, not just general fund, we're looking at exceeding the budget by about $231,000. Now, that is a worst case scenario. Typically with staffing vacancies, personnel shifts, you know, typically we do not spend the entire budget anyways. And in fact, for the previous fiscal year, the 23-24 fiscal year, medical insurance citywide was underspent by about $640,000. So the likelihood that that in total we probably won't have to do many budget adjustments, but would probably want to wait until we know how we're really doing before we actually made any adjustments. But this will cost the city, if under worst case scenarios, about $650,000 per calendar year.
All right. Thank you very much. Do any members of the commission have any questions? Commissioner Clements?
Yes, thank you. You mentioned in option 3 and option 4 deductible amounts, $2,500 and $3,300. Are those for single? So for two-person or family, it'd be $5,000 and $6,600. Okay, thanks. Not really a question, just some thoughts. Having gone through this myself as an employee of a public entity, I know these numbers are real. These increases are significant. They're hard. There's, you know, people that you showed are going to literally have a negative paycheck. And, you know, the employer I work for, we would have people that literally wouldn't even receive a paycheck. So I do applaud the city staff coming up with a plan, working with employees for something that I think is good for everybody. You know, these numbers weren't, you know, nobody knew what would happen. The hard cap, you know, it was mentioned how the treasurer sets the hard cap, and that's not just a number that's pulled out of thin air. To only go up 0.2%, you know, they base those hard cap numbers on medical equipment and devices. Doesn't take into account prescriptions, which that's where the increase is coming from, is prescriptions. So Public Act 152 is flawed, and Public Act 152, you know, I was around when it happened, and I'm employed with a public employer, and it was literally done just to screw the employees. There's no other way around it. Fortunately, the city has options, being school districts don't have options. School districts can't opt out of this. So like I said, I applaud coming forward. When we were faced this in the schools, we never heard boo from our administration. It was just kind of too bad. We were able to figure out some things with offering a different plan. So even though the increases still basically suck, they're a lot better than what they could be. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for working with our employees, and I'm happy to support this. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Brenner?
Thank you very much. Through the chair to the speaker. I think I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway for the record. How will this affect any of our retirees for their health care?
So it's important to understand that the retirees, when they retire under a certain contract, we have to follow by what's written in their contracts as they retire. More recently, those contracts, they are reflective of same as active. So these same prices will be passed down to the retirees as well. It is important to understand that PA 152 does not, it excludes retirees from their calculation.
And also, is it correct that fire and public safety also have a different plan? Will this affect them in different ways as well?
Are you talking about from like a pension standpoint?
Correct.
I don't believe so. No, the healthcare is different from the pension system. So yeah, no, it would affect them just the same. They would just go by what's in their contracts. A lot of them say percentages of illustrative rates, so we follow that. It just depends on kind of when they retired and under what contract that they did.
Okay, thank you very much. Once again, I mirror what Commissioner Clements was saying. This is happening all over, and I'm glad we're taking more of a hands-on stance to this and trying to offer more options than saying, sorry, this is all we have. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Commissioner Gerard, and I see Commissioner Rivett.
Thank you. Quick question. So option 3 and 4 would be an available option to them. We don't know what everybody's going to take until that.
Correct.
Okay.
It is worth noting that options 3 and 4, if an individual takes those, not only does the city save money, they'll save his money as well. So it's kind of a no-brainer to put those two options.
Okay, depending on their needs.
Yeah, and like if they use it, I mean, typically if you're going for the highest deductible, you're not somebody that uses a ton of health.
Yeah, if we have a single young guy, sometimes they're not using all of it. Yeah, makes sense. So with the opting out of PA 152, in the past there's potential penalties from the state for revenue sharing. Is that something that's not a consideration at all?
Well, it is part of that, but it is basically if you go against not having a commission vote 2/3, then yes, the revenue sharing.
They potentially could, or they?
No. So if the commission elects to opt out,
Yep.
then that follows the act. It is when people try to circumvent it. Sometimes
Gotcha.
they do that with. I get the sense that places have tried to do that with union contracts, and there's clear verbiage in PA 152 that excludes them past any extension that goes beyond 2011. So there's places that do have language in there that says, should these, and not to get into specifics, but should this price go over X, the city or county will opt out of PA 152, which I don't think is what the act was intended to have.
Okay. And then others are, as Commissioner Clements said, are experiencing these same type of increases, other municipalities. And so are we seeing this elsewhere around the state, then they're doing this same kind of thing?
So to be clear, the way we are doing it will not affect revenue sharing.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rivett?
So we have a surplus every year. Is there anything in the law that prevents us from refunding money to our employees up to a percentage of what they are additionally contributing?
I don't, That's not something that I've read in PA 152.
Just trying to be creative and support our people, right? So let's say we have $600,000 left over, and the typical employee has put in an additional $1,400. Maybe we can send them back $750 or $1,000. That way they got skin in the game, we're all working together, and they got something to look forward to.
Well, I think it is
Just an idea.
Yeah, I do think it is important to understand that you would want to have a reserve in case your claims, because we are self-funded. So if your claims go above what you've projected, the city has to have a fund to do that. So
I'm talking about surplus at the end of the year.
you would still want to have funds in reserve in case you continue to go over, because those bills do come in every month. So for example, if we have a stop loss of 175, and so if we experience a lot of individuals who are reaching that, and in any given month, for example, we would probably go over what we're expected to pay, and that's why we'd want to have a reserve. So that I got to assume that that's the reason why we would keep a surplus.
After close of books, at the end of the year, we're into a new fiscal year with a brand-new budget. If there's a surplus at the end of the fiscal year, couldn't we refund some of that back to employees who have worked with us to try and keep costs down?
I don't know the legalities. I wouldn't know that.
I would also say that administratively, it'd probably be somewhat of a small nightmare to try to go ahead and figure out how much you would refund. What would you do for people that are hired in the middle of the year? What do you do for people who have terminated? Then going ahead and keep in mind also that our costs are, although we have an illustrative rate that says we project that this person's going to cost $30,000 to insure, that is not reality. Some people we are going to put away $30,000 for, and they're going to go to the doctors twice and charge $150 for. Then there's a person who's going to get cancer and is going to completely wipe out our stop-loss agreement. So how do you start charging those costs? It'd be difficult to come up with that thing, other than just basically giving everybody a refund. But yes, I think you could do that legally.
Thank you. If I may, just for my own clarification, you're saying we set a target fund balance of $500,000. We go over that, we're at $750,000. You give back the $250 or the full $750? Is your proposal there?
It's a line item in the budget, right? So if it goes unspent, it lapses to the next fiscal year. Isn't that correct?
A line item? A line item does not lapse to the next year. It all falls into fund balance at the end of the year.
Oh, I'm sorry, it lapses to the GF. Any unspent money in any line item, default fund, it'll lapse to the general fund or the fund balance.
No. That's the other thing is any kind of unspent funds will go to the reserve in that fund. So for instance, unspent funds in the water department stay in the water department. Electric, same way. Sewer, the same way. So what you'd also be looking at doing, would you be appropriating general fund dollars to assist the water fund, the electric fund, the sewer fund, the street funds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, you guys are smart. You can figure that out, don't you think? What we're trying to do is make it as easy as possible on our employees. We always seem to have a surplus. What I'm not interested in is a giant surplus that never gets back to the employees. That's what I'm concerned about, because you're looking at a 20% spike. What if it's only 10? What if we had all kinds of money in the original budget projections, right? So in that circumstance, the employees are the ones who suffer, right? Because we didn't end up spending the money and it just lapses to the reserve. There should be an opportunity for that money if we are working with our employees to lapse back. Now, do the sewer fund has a insurance pool? You just gave us a number of $652,000, right? So you're obviously able to aggregate it. So you should be able to de-aggregate it, but it's simply a suggestion.
Yeah, I don't know that that wouldn't be considered a part of PA 152, the money that you give to those individuals. Again, we'd probably have to get a legal opinion to see that we're not violating PA 152.
We've opted out of 152. It no longer applies to us, right? We've opted out of 152.
We have not.
No, if we opt out of 152, we're out of 152.
Good. Yeah. Yes. But we haven't previously done that up until this point.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Gerard?
Just real quick, so we do this annually, we have to opt out of 152 annually?
We'd have to opt out annually, yes.
Okay. I know it was brought up previously. Have we looked into the county? My understanding, the county runs or contracts out where the staff there, employees can go to the clinic and there's a savings. Have we looked into that yet?
We have looked into that. The year escapes me, but I got some information from Bill Alsop about it, and it sounded like that the county and the city couldn't come to an agreement on that.
But, well, whether it was historically or not, going forward, if we're going to continue to see these kind of increases,
Yeah, we could look at
it may make sense to take a look at that because, you know, if employees go and there's a savings for them or incentive that we put in, as Commissioner Rivet mentioned, maybe there's an incentive for those folks to go to that clinic, and I think that's what they do versus anybody. Maybe worth it for us to explore that again. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Clements?
Yes, thank you. One thing that would solve all this is repeal of Public Act 152, and I know it's being talked about, so maybe that'll happen and takes care of this for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If you want to go first, I'll go after.
Sure. I just wanted to mention, too, that when this was all brought to us, we were very cognizant of our employees, and the union representation was at the table with us for the last, I guess it's been about a month and a half, trying to come up with ideas, and we appreciate that they were working with us because we wanted to work right alongside of them. So thank you.
Thank you. What do, so most of my questions have been answered, but I have two left. These 4 options for plans that we currently have, I'm assuming option 1 and 2 are pretty good PPO plans, low deductible. Are option 3 both PPO plans that are kind of the same thing, just with higher deductibles, or the HMOs or the HSA plans?
They're the same exact plan as options 1 and 2, just higher deductible. It is worth noting that options 1 and 2 are contractually obligated by the collective bargaining agreements. So we tried to offer a different option for lower costing for the employees.
So within those contracts, and I do not want to force this on anyone at all, but is there an option for those members to take different plans if they want?
Yeah, so are you talking about options 3 and 4?
Yeah, if they were to choose those.
Most of the contracts state that we just must offer those plans.
So the other question I have then is, from there, if we don't have an HSA plan, and I'm just being creative because I know those are significantly cheaper plans, or more cost-effective plans, and you have a young, healthy person who is going to use $150, and they're looking at that deductible, and they're like, I don't really care. One thing that we could do is, because it's cheaper for us as well, is contribute to their HSA, and then they can cover their healthcare expenses out of that, as well as use it as retirement money. When they get to, I think it's 59 and a half, you can cash that out as retirement money. Is that something that was talked about, was potentially doing that, and then, the city saves money, the employee saves money, and actually gets money back in their HSA as an incentive to take that option?
We actually have an HSA plan.
We do have an HSA plan. Okay, I thought we didn't. I thought they were all PPOs that were not HSA.
HSA plan. They're all HSA plans.
They're all HSA plans.
All of them are the
Okay.
exact same plan. The only differences between the options are the deductibles.
Wow, that's a really low deductible on an HSA plan. Okay. Well, I didn't even know that existed. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much. Next order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Commissioner Brenner?
Move to adopt the agenda?
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Gerard?
Second?
Thank you. Do any members of the commission wish to add any item to the agenda? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the agenda?
Commissioner Prince?
Yes.
Rivet?
Yes.
Bernie?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hilliker? Oh, sorry. Gerard?
Yes.
Rumberg?
Yes.
Clements?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, motion is adopted. Next order of business is consent agenda. Do any members of the commission wish to make a change to the consent agenda? Commissioner Burney?
8, 11, and 12.
8, 11, and 12. Could you just state real quick what those are? You don't have to read them, just so we know which ones they are, though.
City manager recommending consumption establishment license to William Cross, DBA KW Holdings LLC. 11, communication action plan for systems improvement for the 26th Street substation. Resolution memorial appointment of Dennis Bonanzac and Whitney Anderson to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Those will be on the regular agenda. Commissioner Rivet?
Item 13, opting out of PA 152.
Thank you. Item 13 will be on the regular agenda. Anyone else? Seeing none, next order of business calls for public input on the consent agenda. This is the opportunity for citizens to remove an item from consent for consideration on the regular agenda. If anyone wishes to make a change, please come to the microphone, print your name and address, and state your name and address for the record, and the item that you wish to have considered on the agenda.
Alex DeWitt, 39 South Erie. Number 14 regarding the Hart Renewable Capacity and Energy Project.
Thank you. Number 14 regarding energy purchase will be on the regular agenda. Anyone else? Okay, he was leaving. I thought he was coming up. Is there a motion on the consent agenda? Commissioner Brenner?
Move to approve the consent agenda?
Thank you. Commissioner Gerard?
Second?
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the consent agenda?
Commissioner Rivet?
Yes.
Bernie?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Gerard?
Yes.
Rumberg?
Yes.
Clements?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Prince?
Yes.
8 yes.
Motion is adopted. Next order of business is remarks of the mayor and commission. Do any members of the commission wish to say anything?
Yes, I would. I sent out a letter about the CAPER. It was, every year there's an annual CAPER presentation, or it's about, okay, I sent out a letter, and this is the letter that I sent out. There's a CAPER meeting for community development, and it was put out for this meeting for community development to come to, I wanted the meeting for the CAPER, the 2023 and 2024 performance of how the money was going to be spent for the assessment for the community development money, for the HUD money and the CDBG funding. That meeting is always done in room 306. And what happens is,
I'm going to put it right here. I asked Dana to have that meeting brought to the public so the public could hear what is done to that money. And I was told that that meeting could not be brought to Chambers. So I want to read what this meeting is about. I'm sorry, I have to pull it up. Hold on. It's called a Consolidation Annual Performance Report. The CAPER provides annual performance report for clients and outputs of the CDBG money in the home investment program. Every year it comes out, and it's been coming out for years, of how money is spent for the community for the 2023 and 2024. It's been coming out for over 20 years. And what happens is they get $1,800,000 and some $1 million, $2 million every year to spend on low-income neighborhoods and homeless people, all these things for the lower-income community. This year, there was zero amount of dollars spent on the city of Bay City. So the meeting was a backdoor meeting again, and it was in room 306. There was no money spent on the community, and no one can tell me where the money went. So I asked for city manager to have community development to come to the podium to tell us where this funding went. So the news put it in the paper, an itemized account of where the money went. So I want to read out the itemized account of the money. And this is where the money went. Okay. It says homeless persons to the homeless shelter, 0. This is over $1 million. Home ownership program, 0. Homeless operations, 0. Affordable housing, 0. Tenant-based rental assistance, 0. Racial ethnic composition families assisted for the city of Bay City, 290 white families, Black or African American families, 61 families, 0. CDBG, $1,834,000, 74 cents. Only $913,000 spent. Okay? Here we go. Access matched financial federal fiscal year, $348,000. 0 matched. All of this money, dollar amount, 0. Community development, spent 0. 0. Number of dollars, 0. African American and Hispanic money to minority owners, rental property, 0. Where is that $1,848,000 community development? Where is it? City manager, you manage these departments. Number of homeless households to be provided affordable living units. 1-year goal, 150. Homeless and other special needs. It says right here, 2023 and 2024, through the state of Michigan, goal not met. We would like to know, city manager, you are the manager over the Department of the Community Development Department. Where is that money? And why haven't you managed the department, the Community Development Department? Where's the money? It's right here. It states it.
So can I ask what you're reading from? I don't know what that is. What are you reading from? What article?
Turn to our city webpage, and it is posted on our city webpage. And I asked her, and I asked you earlier, could she come up here to the podium and tell us why did she have that meeting on Veterans Day when I asked you why would she have a meeting on Veterans Day in room 306? Veterans Day from at 12 o'clock noon to 1 o'clock p.m. Nobody is going to come on Veterans Day to a meeting in room 306. Bring it to the commission, the public meeting. People want to hear what she's done. Not one person, it states it on our city tablet, one person showed up. Why? Because every year she has them in room 306. If she wanted this posted and people to see it and to talk to the people about this, she would have been here the next day on the 12th. November 12th, when I asked you to have her here at the podium to have the meeting for people to see it. The public deserves to see where that money is going to be spent. What was it going to be for her? The public deserved to hear it. On Veterans Day, she made the meeting from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Veterans Day, when everybody knows the government's closed on Veterans Day, 12 noon to 1 o'clock, people work. Low-income people work. Public meetings are like this. Do you see all those people out there? They would have been here. She could have came up to that podium and told everybody where that money is. What would hurt for the people to hear the truth? But no, she sits back there and hides. For the past 20 years,
Commissioner
she
Bernie.
goes to room 306.
Commissioner Bernie, you can't attack employees like this. You got to stop.
I'm not attacking. I want the truth. The people deserve the truth where the money goes. The money could have been spent to fix the firehouses. Over $1 million. That's public safety. The police department, them having a new police station, that's public safety. That's helping us people. $1 million not accountable. That is unacceptable. That's all I have to say. It's unacceptable. The people, the public need to know.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Prince.
I just wanted to quickly say thank you to my colleagues for welcoming me to this body. Additionally, to the city manager, I already have been receiving questions regarding Carroll Park and its playground equipment. Are there any plans to address that from city administration, and what are they?
So We took the equipment out earlier than we thought we would because it was dangerous. We didn't want anybody to get hurt because it was a liability issue. So fast forward, we have tried to get grants for that. We were turned down for a grant, and we're going to continue to apply for grants for that.
Is there a cost estimate on what new playground
I
equipment would
don't
be?
know. I'm looking at our parks director. Is this something you want to get me later, and we can, $500,000? If we could, you know, put it in the parks budget, we might have to do it over a couple fiscal years to do that going forward, because I know that park gets used a lot.
All set? Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Gerard?
Thank you. I've had a couple questions about the homelessness issue and access to restrooms. Now, in several of our parks, we do have porta potties, porta johns, right, that there's accessible and they're cleaned out regularly. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know if we keep them open all winter, though. You know, because everything gets winterized.
Okay, so we don't keep them open all winter?
And not in all the parks, no, we do not.
Okay. There's just some concerns expressed to me about that, and since, you know, we did have that one encampment, and there's another encampment on city property, is that correct? That we know about?
Are you speaking about the one on the west side?
Yeah. Okay. So I just, I don't know, I'd like to see some action plans put together on how we address those issues. Just potential liability for the city with that, and we just need to have some conversations.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Morris?
If possible, I'd like to see some action plans on what it would take to keep Station 5 open, just like what was supposed to be presented today, instead of all that was presented. Because I didn't see any action plans specifically for Station 5. I just saw some prices and the estimate of what it cost for me to remediate the building, but not anything else for Station 5.
Commissioner, so you want us to take that out of the whole equation of looking at the entire picture for public safety infrastructure? So we'll just do that by itself without looking at the other needs? Just so we're clear on what we're getting you.
I understand there are other needs, and there will always be other needs here. I understand that. But it seems like what we agreed to or what we voted on for Station 5, it looks like it was bogarted, and we utilized the time to look at all of the needs, which I think is important, but it seems like Station 5 was basically pushed to the side, and all that was talked about with Station 5 is that we don't want it open because we don't get a lot of calls. But from what we agreed to, it looks like we were supposed to come up with essentially an action plan to keep it open and come up with ideas on how to keep Station 5 open, and that wasn't brought up at all during the presentation. All I heard is that we wanted to close it because they don't get a lot of calls. That's all I heard about Station 5.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was trying to find a date. Anyone else? Seeing none, I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. It's Thursday. Be safe. I know Wednesday night is a big night around town. Just make sure you're being responsible and all that. And also, just a reminder on the lighting contest, make sure to get me those nominations in, and we'll get Mr. Prince, or Commissioner Prince, on the website so that people can start sending him things directly instead of by proxy. Thank you very much. Is what?
Friday, where there's a tree lighting. I don't know.
Oh, yes,
City man-
Friday, the tree lighting, yeah. Yes, there's a tree lighting Friday. The manager's going to talk on that more. Thank you.
So this Friday is a big day. In Bay City, we have Santa arriving at 7 p.m. in Winona Park. I want to thank the Clements family once again for taking charge and getting the tree into our downtown with a lot of help from our electric department. So I want to thank them as well for making that happen. Our very own Mayor Dockett will be reading to the kids on stage again this year. I believe you did it last year too, didn't you? So yes, he got his book tonight, so he's ready to read to the kids.
That was all you had for your report as well? Okay, cool. All right, if there's no one else, we'll move on. Okay. Next order of business calls for public input. Under the rules of the City Commission, each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to speak, and Commissioner Clements will serve as timekeeper. This is the opportunity for citizens to address the commission regarding any item or any other matter. If anyone wishes to address the commission, please come forward, print your name and address on the registration sheet, and then state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, and I'd like to thank, is this okay? I would like to thank the people who put together the presentation and the time that you put into it. However, the resolution was to address Station 5 specifically, and instead we got bombarded with smoke and mirrors and a bunch of other information that didn't address anything about, not much about Station 5, but all the reasons why we cannot and should not, can't afford it, can't do it, to fix Station 5 and reopen it. We need to stop reinventing the wheel. The city needs to prioritize its needs, and public safety should be number one. As Commissioner Rivett stated, we need to have a long-term vision and a strategic approach. And I'm sorry, Commissioner Dockett, I know you don't like people applauding, but sometimes I feel passionate, and I had to do that tonight. You know, it was determined, as reported in the Bay City Times in January of 2014, that Station 5 is important to the west side, specifically the Banks area, and should remain open. This was the opinion of the public safety director, the fire chief, and the commissioner. I don't know why we're changing it now. It shouldn't matter that we have slow calls. There's a whole segment of the city that's being cut off due to railroad tracks, and no other first responders from the city can get through when those tracks are blocked. We have to rely on other townships, and the only township we can rely on is Bangor Township on Wheeler Road, who just passed a fire department millage. Our area is separated by railroad tracks and bridges that slows and/or prevents first responders from getting to the area. And we pay taxes to the city of Bay City, not Bangor Township, not other townships. We shouldn't have to rely on other townships. Decisions such as this should not be solely based on budget, number of calls. It should be the number one priority, and funding set aside for maintenance and staffing. Grants and other sources, such as maybe a millage and grants, could be explored and applied for to help with funding to ensure adequate staffing levels and upkeep and maintenance of buildings and equipment. I talked to Gary Peters' office about this one. The Assistance to Firefighters grant is open and available right now with a deadline of December 20th. And according to the information on his website, it is to provide funding to retrofit or modified facilities to protect personnel from known health hazards. This grant would allow for the roof replacement of Station 5 and the resulting mold removal, ensuring a safe environment for firefighters, staff, and others, and it would also take care of the poor construction that was mentioned in the presentation. There's also the staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grant from FEMA, and I know that Mr. Caleb Rowell said something about strings attached, and I understand that, but I think we should still look at that, because up to 3 years we might have a millage, in 3 years be able to afford maybe a full-time fire department again. But under the SAFER Act, through FEMA, a Lynchburg, Virginia Fire Department was awarded $4.4 million to build a new fire station and also hire 21 new staff to man the station. There's a bill right now that was introduced, and it's called the Fire Station Construction Act. It's been referred to the Homeland Security. It looks promising, and if passed, would allow recipients to build, rebuild, renovate fire and EMS department facilities, upgrade existing facilities to install exhaust emission control systems, install backup power and construct or modify living quarters for personnel, and upgrade fire and EMS stations or build new stations. Going to the public safety officer format rather than having a full-time fire department was supposed to save money and keep our fire stations open. Instead, it has resulted in less staff to fight fires, stations closing, a heavy reliance on mutual aid, and more homes being destroyed by fire due to lack of firefighting personnel and slower response times for mutual aid to arrive and assist. Firefighters used to go in and fight fires. Now they stay outside and fight the fires from outside, and it's my understanding that police will not go inside a building to fight fires. I don't know if that's true or not. So I'm asking the commission to please look at Commissioner Morris's resolution and address the resolution specifically and not necessarily pay attention to all the smoke and mirrors that we heard tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, we didn't get your name and address, though.
Say Judy Bruner, 208 East Murphy Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brenner. Anyone else?
Alex, we're at 329 South Erie. I'm going to work on the item I pulled off first. And while I am a major supporter of renewable energy projects, I noticed that the cost increase per megawatt hour for the HART project is now increased by 50% per the resolution that is in front of you today. I'm wondering if there was any sort of ask or talking to other municipalities about fighting back on that, because a 50% increase is essentially being sold a bad project. And the consequences of that will affect the utility payers in Bay City when the project is completed. But that 50% increase per unit of power will add up when we're trying to detransition from toxic fossil fuel usage in our power generation. And it makes me wonder if the developing system of it ended up favoring the people who will not be benefiting from the cleaner power, and instead capital groups outside. As for healthcare, that one, it's my current position. We've been in a negotiation for over 6 months trying to figure out ways to decrease healthcare costs for employees. And where I'm at is a much smaller organization, so it's theoretically a lot easier. But the one that surprised me was the fact that there is a possible $600,000 annual savings for prescription drugs, but requires us to go outside the country. If that's not an indictment of the American healthcare system, I don't know what is. I would like I'd like to hope that city employees would opt in to help reduce costs for their employer, to help reduce their costs in the end. But as it is their own individual opinion that it's going to, or individual option, that's going to be up to them to hopefully take that initiative to help save both sides some money. And the other thing I want to bring up, after the last meeting, there was a representative from Bay City Bridge Partners who came up here, and then some comments on Facebook came up where I responded about what they said, and they wanted to have a meeting with me. And I think they need to have a meeting with the commissioners, not with one-on-one behind the doors. Something that really, really annoys me about the current bridge that's told is that I know it has been adjusted on Google Maps twice by the public to put at $5.50 per plate crossing. And both times it has been reverted to $2 per crossing. So if you're coming through town and you're someone who is not from here, so you have no idea, and you see, oh, it's only $2, maybe I'll take that. Then you get the bill for $5.50 a crossing. You're going to have such a terrible reputation of the city that you won't want to come back. And the fact that they are allowed to adjust those when it is very public knowledge what is it supposed to be is very frustrating, and it's something that I think needs to be taken care of. This board needs to have them come in and answer questions like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others? Okay. Seeing none, we have no public hearings, no special orders, and we're on to the regular agenda. Will the clerk please read the next item of business?
Reports of Officers 8, City Manager recommending a consumption establishment license to William Cuss, DBA KWE Holdings LLC, to operate their licensed microbusiness with a consumption lounge at 605 East Midland Street, contingent upon final inspection. Recommendation approve.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Commissioner Clements?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Runberg?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Gerard?
I did get a call on this from a neighboring business. On the requirements of this, there's concerns of the odor as a consumption lounge. Can somebody talk to that or speak to that, ventilation required or what?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. They're concerned about what?
About the odor, if you will, is it because it's a consumption lounge as opposed to just a sales lounge, and what requirements there are to make sure that there's proper ventilation and...
So they have to have, obviously, they would have to get inspected, and that's in here as well, their inspections and what the requirements are. It's attached from the department itself. So they do have to have ventilation. I will say odor is a really hard thing to monitor for public safety and our code enforcement office. We do monitor it when we get calls and go out, and usually we can just talk to the individuals about it.
My concern is if there's going to be a constant complaint or how we handle those complaints.
We handle them. We get calls about it. Usually in the industrial park, we'll get calls from there because we have a lot of grows out in that area. This is our first consumption lounge, so we'll have to see how it goes and take it from there. But there is a restriction in the ordinance about odor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Burney?
Yes, I would like to meet this person. I would like, a lot of times we have people that would like us to pass ordinances for them, or they like us to pass things for them, and we never get to meet the people that own these businesses. And I would like to start having them come to chambers so we could see who we're passing these things for. So I would like... for the people that own businesses, I would like to see them come to the chambers and talk to us and let us know who they are and what they're doing in our city and what they would like from us as a city. We are the commissioners here, and we need to know who's coming in our city, what they're doing here, and welcome them in.
Anyone else? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Burney?
No.
Brunner?
Yes.
Gerard?
Yes.
Rumberg?
Yes.
Clements?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Prince?
Yes.
Rivet?
No.
6 yes, 2 no.
Motion is adopted. Will the clerk please call the next item of business?
Communication 11, action plan for system improvements for the 26th Street substation, November update, recommendation receive.
Is there a motion? Commissioner Clements?
Move to receive.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Gerard?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Brunner?
Yes.
Gerard?
Yes.
Rumberg?
Yes.
Clements?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Prince?
Yes.
Rivet?
Yes.
Burney?
Yes.
8 yes.
Motion is approved. Will the clerk please read the next item?
Resolution 12, mayoral appointment of Dennis Benajak and Whitney Anderson to the Planning Commission, terms to expire October 21st, 2027. Recommendation approve.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Commissioner Gerard?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Runberg?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Burney?
First of all, where it says mayoral appointment of Dennis Benanzak and Whitney Anderson to the Planning Commission, the mayor is not supposed to appoint anyone. I'm looking at the charter right here, and it says Planning Commission. The commission shall appoint a planning commission and shall establish the number of members, qualifying terms, rate of compensation, powers, and duties by ordinance, Section 617, Planning Commission. Then it goes down right here, Section 6.9, Boards and Commissions, Councils and Committees, Appointments. The commission shall appoint members to the boards, commission, councils, committees as created or approved by the commission pursuant to applicable law. The commission shall utilize or non-discriminatory method of selecting the best qualified applicants. So if you'll probably try to get technical, Commissioner Docket or Mayor Commissioner Docket, but in your writing, it says mayor appointment. And so with that being said, we can just send it back or however you want to do it, but it says that you cannot appoint anyone. And this says mayor appointment of Dennis Bonanzac. So the resolution needs to go back and be rewritten or however you want to do it, but it cannot be done in this manner.
So this is a mayoral recommendation. There were 2 positions that were open, and there were 2 applicants for those 2 positions. I will defer to the clerk on the interpretation of the charter on that front, but I believe this is still in order.
It does not say in order. It does not say I believe. Your writing here needs to be taken back and it needs to be rewritten. There is no I believe, there is no roundabout. The charter reads what the charter reads. It is law. So it needs to be rewritten. Just like everyone else's, just like my stuff, it needs to be followed the law by charter rule.
So there's a number of boards that the mayor makes a recommendation for, not just the, hang on, I'm getting to that point. The city commission does appoint because they would have to approve or not approve the recommendation coming from the mayor. There are some boards that are just recommended by the commission.
Exactly. He said appoint.
Yep, so he's recommending appointment for the
He didn't,
commission to
but
approve.
he might have, but he, in writing here, he needs to correct it. And at this time, he cannot correct it yet. So that means the law in the charter says, do you want me to read it again?
No.
He has to follow the rules like everyone else.
So what we can do is, I'd like to entertain a motion to modify this to be commission appointment of Dennis Bonanzac and Whitney Anderson to the Planning Commission, terms expiring October 21st, 2007. Would somebody make that motion, Commissioner Clements?
We have a motion on the floor, so I would actually have to entertain that. So I make that motion to make that change.
Sure. Commissioner Clements?
Yeah, I would second that if Commissioner Gerard is agreeable to amending his motion.
Yes.
Excuse me.
It's been amended, as long as are you objecting to amending it?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I would like to say, isn't he on another board also? Because he is,
Point of order, we have to, if you're objecting, that we have to vote on the objection, and then there's discussion.
We can discuss the objection.
point of order, I'm talking, point of order.
Wait, okay. Great, hold on. Hold on. So we can have discussion on the objection, that is fine. People are allowed to serve on multiple boards, that's very clear. It's just this board, you can't be on this board and the Planning Commission. But you can be on the Planning Commission and the HDC or the Planning Commission and the DDA or something like that. So that's allowed. Commissioner Rivett?
What do we meet next week? Let's just refer back to staff. Change it so it's a commission appointment. Change the way we do business here and move on. I move we refer back to staff and fix it and deal with it next time.
So we have to vote down the amendment make your amendment, or make your recommendation, refer back to staff. So we have to vote first on the amendment. Does anyone want to speak on the amendment before we move on to Commissioner Rivet's referral? Commissioner Clements.
And Commissioner Gerard withdraw his motion to amend?
He could.
And just refer back to staff. I mean, that's fine. It's going to be the same thing. So, I mean.
That's fine.
Okay. That's
Okay.
One question, is there a planning commission meeting next week where they need to have a quorum? And just do it next week.
That's fine.
So Commissioner Rivet, do you want to make the motion to refer to staff?
Just refer back, clean it up. Thank you. Motion.
Thank you. Is there any objection? Oh, we need a second. Is there a second? Commissioner Clements.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any objection? It's been referred to staff. Will the clerk please read the next item?
Resolutions 13, Commission as a whole resolution opting out of PA 152 and share the annual health insurance premium increase with city employees for 2025 in the estimated amount of $652,845.96, split between fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. Recommendation approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Clements?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Brunner?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Rivet?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I took this off the agenda because not because of the proposal per se, but how we do business here in the city. We did an extraordinarily substantial fiscal decision tonight. We had a presentation, and then the item was on the consent agenda 15 minutes later. You know, some of us, this commission, should have more opportunities to actually get involved in the administration of the city. Now, I don't know if rebating money back to employees, if we have a fiscal surplus, is legal, but if we would have had this conversation 6 weeks ago when you began it with the unions, with this body as well, we potentially could have done something more for our people. But what happens is, work gets done, it's given to us with a, in a presentation, and there's not even a discussion point. It's on the consent agenda. That's not the city commission leading, that's the city commission being lemmings. And so I think this new commission should understand and take the role of actually administering and being part of this city, because we're not doing it now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any others? Okay, so this particular item does have a bit of an odd piece to it. It does require 6 votes in order to pass. So it does require a supermajority. 5 votes does not pass this. Is there any other discussion after that? Okay, seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Rumberg.
Yes.
Clements.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Prince.
Yes.
Rivet.
Yes.
Bernie.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Gerard.
Yes.
8 yes.
Motion is approved, and with more than 6, will the clerk please read the next and final item on tonight's agenda?
Resolution 14, Commission as a whole resolution authorizing the second amended and restated purchase power commitment with Michigan Public Power Agency for the Hart Solar Renewable Capacity and Energy Project. Recommendation approved.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Commissioner Brenner?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I'm sorry, we need a second. Is there a second? Commissioner Runberg?
Second.
Is there any discussion now? Commissioner Gerard?
We did have a speaker, had some questions how things are negotiated. I don't know if we can get an answer for that.
Yeah, if we can have Adam come up, he can talk about the market rates and how we need to lock in prices at certain times to protect ourselves.
Yeah, so with any purchase power agreement that we enter into, us as well as several other municipally owned electric utilities in the state of Michigan go through an organization called MPPA. They're kind of our broker. They watch the rates that are out there. They also go out and they make sure that projects are viable. This particular project, when we initially started it, was pre-COVID, and the initial developer ran into several issues with staffing and the ability to obtain the solar panels at a reasonable price when COVID subsided. So they originally came back with a request just for a time extension, because they were going to work to negotiate those prices, you know, with their vendors and the labor and stuff like that. Fast forward to today's proposal. They have increased the price. It is a new developer now. The previous developer decided, you know, it's not for us. A reputable developer that has developed other solar projects in the state of Michigan that we have actually done business with, purchased that project. However, along with that, they've also ran into the problem of being able to afford those solar panels and the labor at a reasonable price. We've negotiated what that price would be, or that price increase would be, and it went up to $64. So it was a little bit of an increase in order to get there. However, if we were to, along with the other municipalities in Michigan, say that we didn't want this project, we wanted to obtain what's known as a security deposit, and what that is when we enter into an agreement, if they can't meet their obligations, and once it comes to that point, if we don't mutually agree to extend that project, they have to pay us a certain dollar amount, and then it's divvied up amongst all the other municipalities. So in talking with them, what they have offered with this $64 increase, or the $64 rather, is they've increased the amount of what that security is. It went from, I believe it was right around 2.5 to 3 million. They upped it to 6 to 6.5 million that they would have to pay us. Well, if they do not meet this deadline, and we don't agree with an extension, then they would have to pay us that additional funds. We also went out and we looked to see if we said no to this project, that we don't want this price increase, give us that security deposit, what it would cost us to go out and actually replace it with another renewable project. Currently on the market, if we were to go into a similar size consumption, we're looking at between $74 and $78 per megawatt hour. So it's even more than what we're getting from a project that we're already, you know, a part of. We did ask the question, you know, we're only a 50% off-taker of this project as MPPA, and then there's another off-taker that's taking the other 50%. The other entity, while we cannot confirm, but we believe that their price is 75. So we're actually getting a discount from what the other half of the entity is actually paying for the project. With that being said, we have certain mandates that we have to have certain renewables by the state. There was state legislation that was recently passed, and we only suspect that renewable energy, as those deadlines start to get closer and closer, are going to skyrocket in cost. Unfortunately, that's just a cost that we're going to have to bear at the time. So we've been doing our due diligence and trying to get as many renewable projects as we can at affordable pricing now, before all the utilities in Michigan, co-ops, investor owns, and everybody are trying to, you know, fund and find property for renewable projects.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any others? Commissioner Prince?
This locks in the price, was it $64 per megawatt hour for the next 20 years from this project, correct?
That is correct, yeah. It's locked in solid price for 20 years.
So you won't be coming back to us to have us approve an increase or anything like that, most likely?
The only thing that would potentially happen is again, this is a second amendment to it. We, as well as the actual developer, have a strong feeling that this will likely succeed with this new round with a new developer. The only way that we could potentially come back is if, again, they can't meet their deadlines, and we, at that point, opt not to take their security deposit, and their pricing or their adjusted price would be doable for us, you know, in cost. What they could do, you know, is once they've completed the project and it's built, then the price is locked in. There's nothing that would change. It's basically what they call a COD, or commercial operation date. Once that date is met, then that price is locked in from that point forward.
And what is the percentage of our portfolio in this project for energy?
So on this particular project, again, we take, the MPPA as a whole is 50% of the project. Our portion is, I believe, 3.75 or 4, right in that ballpark.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others? Sorry, I thought that you were getting ready to say something. If there are no others, will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Clements,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Prince,
Yes.
Rivet,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Gerard,
Yes.
Runberg.
Yes.
7 yes.
Motion is adopted, and that